In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to cut this stylish waist snatch Agbada Bubu dress. If this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. For this tutorial, I'll be drafting out the measurements. I'll be drafting out this pattern on my pattern paper here, and I'll be using the full length of this pattern paper as the full length of my dress. I'm going to mark the shoulder to bust, that is my shoulder to bust, shoulder to waistline, shoulder to hip point, which is 7 inches after your waistline. Then I'll mark my waist to knee line. So let's take 11 inches from my waist to be my shoulder to knee line, but it is not my actual knee line because I'm using the full length of this pattern paper. I'll just mark it that way. Now I'm just going to go ahead to connect this, then draw out all these lines before we start drafting. So I'm going to go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. So my shoulder divided by 2 is 7 inches. I will mark. Now from this 7 inches, go ahead to mark the total length of your sleeve, how long you want your sleeve to be. So let's just say I'm using about 14 inches. Now whatever you're cutting, just know that you're adding like the folding allowance to it, right? So if I'm using 14 inches, 1 inch there will be like the folding allowance where I'll be passing elastic round the sleeve. So there's an elastic round the sleeve because we have like a bob sleeve at the end, right? Now you go ahead to mark. Now this 14 inches is not a constant. Just like I said, go ahead to measure where you want the sleeve to stop on the person's body, right, before going ahead to do this. Now from that point, I'll come down by 1 inch, right? Then I'll go ahead to start connecting this all the way to the upper part of my pattern. So after connecting, what I'll do is to go ahead and I will mark a basic neckline of 3 inches by 1 inch, and I will connect. Now after connecting at this point, this is the back neckline. Now the next step we'll take, let me go ahead to outline this first. This is the bust, this is the waist, here is the hip, and here is my blouse length, my knee line, sorry, and here is my gown length, right? So now the next step you need to take is to mark how wide you want the sleeve to be, right? Remember the sleeve is very big, so place your tape and mark how wide you want that to be. So my shoulder to waist is actually 17 inches. So whatever I will mark, because of my shoulder to waist is a bit shorter, whatever I will mark will be within that range of my waistline, right? So what I'll do now is to go ahead and I'll mark a sleeve opening of 14 inches, right? And after marking that, I'll draw a straight line to that point. Now this 14 inches is not a standard, right? I'm marking it because that is what my shoulder to waist is, not that much, so I don't have the space to like create more fuller sleeve, right? So after marking that, go ahead to draw out a straight line at this point. Now you remember that you'll be using 1 inch to add like an elastic to your sleeve, right? Now from this your sleeve measurement, from this 1 inch I came in here that you'll be using for your elastic casing, so measure about 6 inches from there. Come in about 6 inches from there, and from there I'm just going to go ahead to create like a curve connecting all the way to the waistline of my pattern. Now after connecting this to the waistline of my pattern, now at the hip point of this person, go ahead to mark the hip circumference divided by 4. So my hip is 40 divided by 4. I have 10 inches. Sorry, 40 divided by 4. I have 10 inches, right? So from this 10 inches, now you're going to add like an extension to this pattern, right? So for the extension, to give you that curvy bubu effect by the side, now this totally depends on the length or how big you want that side to be also, right? So I'm just going to add about 8 inches to mine, right? Now from this point, I'll just give it a good curve and I will connect this to this point. Now you see this knee point that we have, I'll go ahead to measure what I have here now, and I'll be transferring it to this point, which is 14 inches, right? Now if you check the measurement I have here, it will now be, my hip is 40 divided by 4, which is 10, then extra 4 inches to it, right? So that is 14, and that is okay for a bubu dress. Now that is what I'm using here on the knee point, right? I'll now go ahead to curve it out. Please, sorry, my curve is not that good because my waist to knee point is a bit shorter because I'm just making use of the full length of this bubu dress. So I'll just connect to that point, slope it down, and then the measurement I have there, that is what I will take all the way to the lower part of this dress, which is 14 inches, and I'll go ahead to connect. So this is what you'll be having. Now I'll just go ahead to cut this out. Now after I was done cutting this bubu dress, I took another look at the bubu and I realized that you're not going to connect from the sleeve towards the waist. You're actually going to connect from the sleeve to the hip point. When you're marking yours, please go ahead to reconnect it. Neckline, then you'll be adding an elastic casing. You make an elastic casing at the edge and you pass your elastic there. After cutting your back pattern, what you do is to place it on another fabric, then add like 1 inch in front because you'll be stitching the center of this dress, right? And since you're not making it with a lining, by the time you stitch it, you have to go ahead to weave it out. So add like 1 inch in front and then place your back pattern on it and then go ahead to trace it out. After tracing it out, to cut out the neckline pattern, after using the back to trace out, what I'll do is to place my tape, measure how deep you want the neckline to be. Now let's say I'm using 7.5 inches for the depth of the neckline. I'll just go ahead to connect. So after connecting, I'll just slope it here. So remember, just like I said, you'll be stitching up this. There's a joining at the front part of this bubu, which you'll be using this 1 inch to join it. Now you'll be cutting 2 pieces for your bubu on both sides, right? Then I'll go ahead to cut out this part. Now after cutting out this part, what we'll now go ahead to do is to stitch this, join this together and measure the neckline of the front, and also go ahead to measure the neckline of the back. The neckline of the front I have 8 inches, the neckline of the back I have 3.5 inches. From the back to the front, right, you're going to cut it on fold. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark 1/2 inch here. Now from this point, I'll mark the neckline we got for the front, which is 8 inches, plus that of the back, which is 3.5, right? And I'll go ahead to like draw a straight line at that point, and also here. Now at the back of this neckline, I'm going to come down by 1/2 inch, right? Now I'll place my tape and I'll find the midpoint and I'll mark. So from this 1/2 inch I came in, now I'll go ahead connect all the way up. Now after connecting, you want to measure if what you have is the same. That is 8 inches plus 3.5 will give you 11.5. So you want to make sure that what you have is 11.5 still, and then you mark, right? If there's any new adjustments, you go ahead to correct that. Now what you're going to do now is for the back collar, I will mark at least about 2.5. So you can use 3. Okay, let me adjust it to 3. You can use 3 inches here. Now coming down to the front part, I'll add an extension to my sleeve. So I'll mark about 3 inches. Now this 3 inches is not a standard. You have to like check how long you want it to come down towards the lower part of the front pattern of your dress, right? Now what I will do now is to go ahead to come down from here to about 5 inches. So after marking that, I'm just going to go ahead to connect from here all the way to that point, and I'll go ahead to connect from here, creating that neckline, like that collar that'll come from the front all the way to the back pattern of the dress. Now what I'll do is to go ahead I'll just go ahead and cut this out. Right now, while cutting this out at the back, I'll come down a little by ½ inch here. This is so that the collar will relax at the back. Then you're cutting this on fold and you're attaching. Now let's work on the body of the bubu dress. We are attaching a belt inside of this dress to create that snatched effect. For this band that will create the snatched waistline of this front. So remember, like I said, you're going to stitch here up, right? When you stitch here, you join your collar from the front to the back, right? Now, why you have this snatched waist is because there's a belt inside this dress. That is, when you wear it, you raise your dress and tie the belt at the back. Now, what you do is to go ahead to place your tape and mark at least 15 to 17 inches. Within 15 to 17 inches, depending on how tall the person is. If it's someone that is shorter, you can use 15 inches. So let me make a point on the shorter side, so I'll just use this 15 inches, right? Now, what I'll do is, from this line now, I'll divide my waist circumference by 4, right? So my waist is 28 divided by 4. It will give me 7 inches, and I will mark. Now, this belt you're joining it at the wrong side of the fabric. That is, inside your dress. When you're done sewing, you're joining this belt at the back, and you're joining one on one side of the front and also stitching at the side of the back. That is why you're using your actual waist measurement, so that by the time you tie it, it will not be showing that you have a belt attached to the back. That is why you have this belt attached to it. When you attach it on your actual waist, you tie it at the back, and then it will now give you that fitted effect at the waistline of your pattern. Now you're going to be doing this at both sides of your waist. You will now pin it, right? You're not doing this at the back, you're stitching it at the front and then tying it inside your dress at the back. Then when you wear your dress, it will give you that fitted bubu effect in front, like a snatched effect. Now for the band, length of the band, you can use, let's say if your waist is 28 inches, minus 4 inches from it and use it for the length of the band. So for the width can be 3 inches or 2 inches. It totally depends on what you want.